Transportation Commission to order. The first item we're going to do is roll call.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So just like past meetings, we'll run through the roll here for the record. So, Chair Dunser.
Here.
Vice Chair Bradley.
Here.
Commissioner Gepner.
Here.
Commissioner Schmidt.
Here.
Commissioner O'Howard.
Here.
Commissioner Edgerton.
Here.
Commissioner Walls.
Here.
And Commissioner Durzak. All right, Lou, I didn't hear you, but I see you, so we'll count it.
All right. Thank you. Our next item on our agenda is to review and approve the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved, or I move the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Moved and seconded. All those in favor, show of hands, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. The agenda is unanimously approved. Our next item is to review and approve the minutes from the September 1st, 2021 meeting. If there are no questions or suggested changes, is there anyone who would like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I read them, they look good.
I move to approve.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
So moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye and raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? See none. The minutes are unanimously approved. Okay. Next we have Welcome Transportation Engineer, Ben Manabog.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I know I've introduced our new transportation engineer, Ben Manabog, via email a time or two, I think, at this point. But he's here with us today. We're excited to have him. He's been a great asset to join the engineering department in Public Works about 2 months ago now. Ben, I'll let you say a little bit about yourself here. But Ben joins us from St. Louis Park, where he was their transportation engineer for almost 5 years. So Ben, if you don't mind, just give a little background on your education, and then we can maybe go around the room and just let you all introduce yourself to Ben, maybe just your name and years on the commission, and then a little bit about your background if you're interested in that. So.
Thanks, Scott. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ben Manabog. I use he, him pronouns, and like you said, I 4+ years at St. Louis Park, did a lot of work in kind of all things transportation. So that's all kinds of modes, from traffic management for vehicles to transit, pedestrian, and bicycle infrastructure. As far as like my background, it's a civil engineering background, but I'm also finishing up a graduate degree in urban planning at the University of Minnesota. And then outside of that, kind of my perspective coming into transportation infrastructure and engineering and planning is one that more, let's say, I don't own a vehicle and I don't drive much. And so a lot of how I get around is also how I approach the work that I do. And it's a pleasure to meet all of you, and we'll be looking forward to working with you all. Thanks.
Thank you, Ben. And just to keep some order to this all, I guess if I'll just call on the commissioners, just so it's not chaos. So Chair Dunster, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, welcome, Ben. Nice to meet you virtually. My name is Wes Dunser. I've been on the Transportation Commission for 3 years. I'm just passionate about, really forward strategic thinking and using innovation and out of the box ideas to really make sure that Richfield is progressing in the best way possible. So I'm excited to work with you and to continue all the great development that's underway. Welcome.
Vice Chair Bradley.
Hello and welcome, Ben. My name is Husnia Den Bradley. I've been a Richfield resident for at least 15 years, and I've been on the Transportation Commission for the last 3 years. I have just been interested in learning more about the planning going on in Richfield and the transportation, and welcome to Richfield.
Commissioner Gepner. I think you're
Believe
still
you're
muted.
muted.
I was trying to do something else in the meantime. Probably not appropriate, but I made a point of calling Ben when I first heard of his hiring in Richfield, so I at that time introduced myself. I also heard indirectly and shared with Ben that there were other municipalities and places where he could have gone to work, and he selected Richfield. So I think that the city scored true in having Ben be part of the staff. So welcome to Richfield.
Commissioner Schmidt.
Can we hear me? Okay. Well, Ben, welcome, as other people have said here, to Richfield. My name's Kyle Schmidt. I've lived in Richfield for about 7 years, and I want to say 2-ish or so on transportation here. I think time's kind of gotten flat at this point, so I can't really remember. At least half of them have been this way. So, yeah, as others have kind of said here, just excited to be here in this capacity and to see this incredible multimodal and award-winning work that we're doing in this great city, and to support the ability of residents and to be able to get around and do what they need to do in our city. And it's been an incredible learning experience for me, and it's been a pleasure. So we're all excited to work with you.
Commissioner O'Howard.
Yeah, hi, welcome, Ben. Good to meet you. I have been on the committee, so very similar to Commissioner Schmidt, for 2-ish years, but all have been in the pandemic. So I've actually only met everyone in person once. So whenever I meet you in person, it'll be very similar. And I'm new to Richfield. I moved to Richfield probably 2 years ago now. My husband and I intentionally picked Richfield. We're looking at a couple cities. We have quite a few friends here. And I was really drawn to Richfield and this committee with really being a part of really unique change and being part of a city that wants to be on the leading edge of mobility and being forward facing with that I wanted to kind of be a part of that and provide the lens of hopefully your traditional, what would be the right word? Local stewardess. So I don't have a background in transportation or anything, but really hopefully being able to provide the lens and translate what all these intelligent people teach me with, and same with you. So great to meet you.
Commissioner Edgerton.
Hello, Ben. Dan Edgerton. I have been on Transportation Commission for 3 years this go around. I've been on some other commissions before that where I was a liaison to Transportation Commission. Richfield resident for maybe close to 15 years, something like that. I guess I don't know, in that neighborhood. I'm really passionate about transportation and about multimodal transportation. So that's that, and helping to give my community a voice in the process. So that's why I'm a part of this group.
Commissioner Walls.
Welcome, Ben. Jeff Waltz. I've been a resident of Richfield for almost 25 years now, and have a couple kids in the school system, and been involved in other committees like the Planning Commission. But really, the interest in transportation comes from kind of our unique position in the metro. I think we're kind of a node, but yet also a destination, and all the variety of transportation needs that come with that is just really fascinating to me. So always something interesting on the docket for us.
And Commissioner Durzak. I think Lou is having some technical difficulties. Lou, can you hear us? All right, we can circle back. Commissioner Severson, is that you on the phone here? All right, we can cover those guys when they get their connection issues sorted out. And then lastly, Councilmember Hafer O'Leary, I think it's pointful to maybe touch on your background with the commission too.
Yep. Sean Hayford O'Leary, right now council liaison, but I've been different forms of liaison to this commission, but never a full member for many years. I was the bike walk representative for about 6 years before being on the city council. I also have an urban planning background in the same program that Ben is in now. Started on the council a year ago, and in my personal life am passionate about bike walk issues, including living in Richfield car free for about 18 months and as car light as I can ever since. So glad to have you on board and glad to be back with this group.
All right, and then I'll just do a last call. Commissioner Durzak, can you hear us and do an introduction? All right, I think we can move on. I guess. Oh, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. The next item on our agenda is the Safe Routes to School program.
Yep, I'll start that off, and I want to know, I do hear an echo from someone on here, just to make sure that there's no feedback loop.
Yeah, I'll override these people. I'll override Lou. I think it's coming from.
Right. So for the stuff I've got on the agenda today, some of this is updates or things that Public Works is starting to work on for the upcoming year. So the first of these is in our Safe Routes to School program. And so right now, Public Works is collaborating with the school district on getting a infrastructure grant from the state of Minnesota, MnDOT, and this will be for the dual language school and dual language and STEM school. I'm still learning all the schools here, and some of the pedestrian experience around there. The grant itself covers the construction cost, and so MnDOT would reimburse the city after we, if we were to get it after we complete the work. And the projects range from 50 to 500,000. And so the request is part of the engineering study that I believe Will Lislow presented to you all a few months ago from the school district. And so he and I were the collaborators putting this application together to the state. And so I'll have a map just after this, but this is for sidewalk and crosswalk installation, as well as moving a fence around to accommodate all of this in the same space. So there's two locations for this project listed on the screen here. One is on the south edge of the school, and that will be the sidewalk and moving of the fence on the south edge there. And then on the west side of the school is some other pedestrian work. To orient yourself, the far right hand of the screen is 12th Avenue. On the north side is 70th. And then the south side of the school is 71st. And the west is Elliott, I believe. So on the south edge, we are looking to install a 6-foot sidewalk. And this is part of, this is one of the elements that were a part of that engineering study. that the school district and the city worked together on. To do this, we'll be moving the existing fence that's kind of adjacent to the baseball fields north. And by doing this, we are able to leave the trees as they are today. We don't have to touch them. We don't have to take down them at all. So that's the good news. And then on the west edge, we're looking to widen the sidewalk that's kind of on the south edge there below 71st Street, or I guess the west stub of 71st Street. It's currently about 4 feet wide. And so wanting to get that out to the same width as the kind of rest of the area. The other element of this is installing a crosswalk that goes west across Elliott Avenue along 71st Street, and also installing new curb ramps to meet the ADA standards for that intersection. So to this point, both the city and the school district work together on kind of a pre-approval letter showing our interest in this program, in this grant. And so MnDOT has already given us a thumbs up to continue on in their process. And so what we'll be doing is getting all of the information and stuff together for the full application by early January. If we were to get selected for this, then we are able to get this all in for the 2023 construction season. And that would be all of the elements that we've talked about here. So that's all that I had for this section, or for this item. And so I want to open it up to the commission for any questions or conversation.
Thank you, Ben. Any questions or comments from the commission?
Ben, just a quick question here. Some of the other stuff Will presented on, like I think like parking lot reconfiguration and stuff like that as well for over on the STEM school side. Is that not part of the grant? Is that sort of funded by the school district, or maybe remind me how that goes?
Sure, thank you for the question. So the parking lot is being left alone at this time. One of the things that the school district did about a month ago was a pilot of some of their arrival and dismissal operations. They closed their kind of westernmost driveway along 70th Street to try to redirect everything into one place, give everyone, it was a lot about their queuing. And so Will is taking that, all of that experience, and they're kind of revisiting what they want to do with the parking lot at this point. And I haven't gotten word on what they want to do moving forward yet.
Any other questions or comments from the commission or anyone else? Okay, seeing none in the chat. We will move on. Thank you, Ben. The next item on our agenda is the bicycle-friendly community reapplication.
So I'll take back control. So what I'll be talking about is the Bike Friendly Communities, which is a program run by the League of American Bicyclists. And it's a way for cities to understand how what they're currently doing and what their room for improvement is on making their city more bike friendly and making it more possible to live without a vehicle, use a bike for more than just recreational trips. The city last applied for this in 2017, where we were given the Bronze Award. They kind of go, there's 5 levels now. They go from Bronze, Silver, Gold, and then Platinum and Diamond. To give you reference for what other cities are and what that scale is, I believe St. Paul is Silver, Minneapolis is Gold and or Diamond at this point. Or Platinum, they're up there, and some other communities in the Twin Cities as far as suburbs are bronze. And what I kind of walked into at the city is that there's already a reapplication committee that's put together to gather in the information and put an application in to get a better award level. So Councilmember Hayford O'Leary is on that, as well as other staff from the city, Will from the public schools, Bloomington Public Health, and some other advocate folks with that. And we are just kind of getting that process restarted now that I'm here with the city, and I'll be taking over that process. Will from the school district was originally had originally been leading that. So at this point, we are gathering a lot of, or we will be gathering information. What we weren't able to talk about the last time the committee met is that, so the league is revamping their entire application process. And what that is that they're revamping all of their, the questionnaire that everyone has to answer and the things that you have to present them. And so they won't be releasing what they want to do with that until March. However, in between that time, we do have everything that we had to give them before. And so we can certainly prepare ourselves with any of that data, which is honestly helpful anyways to understand where we are today as we put together the best presentation. And then when we get that submitted, we'll see what the committee or what the league thinks of our stuff in 2023. One of the other parts that's not listed here, so there is an application that comes from the city or the government entity, but there's also a portion that that the community also answers to. I believe it comes in the form of an online survey, and that gets sent out one through advocates that the city, kind of advocate organizations or individuals that the city lists in the application, as well as just a general public survey that gets released through the league system, as well as the city or whoever else is applying. So you'd be seeing that in the next year or so as well. That was all I had for this. Open it back up for questions and conversation.
Great. Thank you, Ben. Any questions or comments from the commissioners?
I have a thought. This is David Gepner. You know, Richfield was unique in being the first metro suburb to get the bike-friendly designation. And it is certainly hopeful that we not only get it again, but we move up a slot in the designation. So hopefully all that can happen.
Thank you, Commissioner Gepner. Any other questions or comments from anyone at the meeting?
Mr. Chair, can I make a comment real quick?
Please.
I'd just like to add to Ben's note about the public survey and reaching out to community members and getting that feedback. We'd certainly appreciate any connections or help that the commission could provide in reaching out to those advocacy organizations that you all as community members have relationships with. So I think that's something that we'll do, as Ben said, keep an eye out for that in the next year or so. And I think we'll probably have a specific ask to the commission to help us get the word out in some of those areas.
Thank you. And so that would be in spring of 2022, correct? If I remember from your timeline.
That's correct, yes.
Great. And then I'm sure there will be an opportunity to remind the commission at that time. Okay, good.
Absolutely.
That sounds great. Are there any other questions or comments regarding the bicycle-friendly community reapplication?
Just to note, as it motivates us that St. Louis Park did move up to silver this year, and I think we're at least as bike friendly as St. Louis Park, with no offense to Ben's former employer, but Bike Man thinks we can do gold, and I'm hoping for that. And we are making other changes related to try to both improve ourselves as a bike friendly community in the lowercase bike friendly community, and to have a stronger application next year. So at the end, when I do my updates, I'll mention at least one of those items.
Sounds great. Thank you. All right. If there's no other comments or questions, we'll move on.
I do have a question. I thought the initial designation lasted for 3 years or 4 years. Does Ben know or Sean know? Is that? So
Yes,
what's going now? We're status non gratis, whatever they call it.
I can answer to that. So the league lets the designation go for generally 4 years, and with COVID, they gave a grace period for a lot of communities to get some of that back together. And then now with the league kind of revamping their whole application process, that grace window has widened, which is why we're able to retain the bronze that we had from 2017 and then still be able to apply in 2022.
And just to add, we did receive bronze twice, once in 2013 and once in 2017, our current status. So it was a little disappointing that we did not see an improvement given the physical changes that occurred between those, but much more has happened since then.
All right. Seeing no further questions or comments, we will move on to our next item on the agenda, the shared mobility primer.
Sure, this one will be mine again. And so this presentation is more just to introduce you all to this topic. And I know that you may have heard a lot from other communities or seen stuff in the news about it. And so I wanted to make sure to get it in front of you to get you thinking as as we move on through the next couple of years here, and as we get a lot of new transit infrastructure and other kind of new great things here. This will probably be something that may be in the mix. So shared mobility has, first of all, a lot of names. People call it micromobility. I can't think of all the names, to be honest. And what most folks I talk to think about it is kind of the two things on the upper right, scooters and bikes, and those mostly have happened in Minneapolis and St. Paul and other really large cities across the country. Some other forms of it have happened like in the bottom left, like actual like moped scooters, but those have really been in the very large cities of the country. But it can be a lot more than just those. So one of the examples that I point out is the top left is the Eevee Car Sharing pilot, which Minneapolis and St. Paul are working on right now, where it's if you've ever used a car to go or an hour car, it's where you can kind of pick up and short-term rent a car and kind of do your errands and then leave it at another kind of station across either of those cities. And that one in particular is they're all electric vehicles. That'll be in the next few years here. And this kind of graphic from the Shared Mobility Collective in the Twin Cities, kind of widens that scope into being not just active and non-vehicular travel, but also that car sharing, van pooling is another one that Metro Transit talks about. And so the main point here is I want to make sure people think it's not just scooters. Scooters are great, and they're kind of part of this larger system of things people are talking about. So at the moment for shared mobility, so Minneapolis and St. Paul drives a lot of this. They are where most of these trips from either your shared scooters, which are companies like Lime and Bird, the bikes, which are Nice Ride, which I'm sure many of you have heard of before, may have used, and kind of and the car sharing also happens mostly between those two cities. However, that what do you call it? Those services are starting to branch out into the suburbs. So, for instance, the as far as scooters go, some of the west suburbs have had them since 2019. So some of those nearby would be St. Louis Park, Edina had them for a year or two, Golden Valley, Brooklyn Park. And in addition to that, Zipcar, which is another one of those car sharing businesses, has now taken a first look at expanding outside of the core cities. And so I know that there's a group of western suburbs that are trying to prepare for that. And I was in some of those talks at the previous city, but we are in the same neighborhood as all of these. Metro Transit has Metro Transit and MnDOT have been trying to better accommodate and plan for these things. So, for instance, MnDOT is working on a platform or the ability to kind of see all of these in the same place. So if you've ever used something like Google Maps or the Transit app to see what are my different options to get from A to B, MnDOT's trying to make that more possible with all of these kind of new services popping in and out. And that's something that they started an RFP or a recent project working on that starting probably this next year or two. And I'll share with more information as it comes forward. And these have also been, all of these that we've been talking about have also been introduced more often in greater Minnesota. And so, colleagues in City of Rochester, Grand Rapids, and Bemidji have all had some form of the bikes, the scooters, a mix of them, to actually very positive. So it's not just in the core cities, and it can be here as well. As you think about this, there's also a lot of barriers that prevent different kinds of folks from using any of these. So if you've never used one of these shared scooters or bikes or vehicles, you generally have to have a credit card to pay for the system. It's most often not cash-based. Some of these programs do offer ways to do it. They are cumbersome. They can be hard, especially because it's hard to find the information to do that. A lot of these are app-based, so you have to have some sort of smartphone or access to one, and also, I guess cash goes along with the unbankedness, but either a credit card or some kind of bank account to attach to an account like this are all ways that it can be difficult. But they also can be convenient for folks that do have those. And so if we want to move forward with the system or a program for like this, these are things that we would have to have in mind. This is kind of the end of the presentation, but to more update you on things that the city is considering or thinking around. So I sit on the steering committee for what's called the Shared Mobility Collective, which is kind of looking at shared mobility statewide, both in the scooters and bikes and in like the more vehicular based ones. And so that's a mix of folks from different forms of government. There's advocacy groups in there as well. And so any information that comes out of that will be kind of used in tandem with what we come up with at the city, if we have some sort of program like this. That's the material I have, so I can send it back to the chair for any questions or conversation.
Great. Thank you, Ben. I have a quick question. As far as those paying with cash, does that pose any kind of liability risk or accountability risk versus with a card or something? At least you have someone to go after if they destroyed it or something like that. Just wondering how those issues are being looked at.
Sure. So I'll use so Bird, for example, their way to use cash was through I forget what the service was called, but it was no matter what, for any of these programs, you have to have an account or some sort of way that says, I went from A to B using this this vehicle. And so Bird System was you pay cash at they were like Super America's, Walgreens, and one other kind of similar convenience store, and that transaction is still attached to your account, so there's still accountability or a what do you call it, a crumb trail of who used what.
Great. Thank you. Does anyone at this meeting, any commissioners, or anyone? Dan, before it.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think that shared mobility, micro mobility is great. It's last mile mobility. It's that can help people overcome that barrier of, man, I would really like to take the bus, but it's too far away. I can't get there. That kind of thing. Or for those shorter trips that are maybe too long to walk, but you wouldn't need to drive. So I think it's a good thing. And so my question is, Ben, you started to touch on this, and maybe it's also a question for our council liaison, but what is Richfield doing to position itself to encourage shared use mobility providers to invest in our city? How do you like that to put you on the spot?
As far as I know, we haven't formally requested proposals in the past, and I think part of what Ben's hoping to do with this presentation and this future work is to get an RFP out there and see how they react. I would say our corridor of investment on 66 and the amount of multifamily housing we're building will hopefully make it more viable. Admittedly, we're probably not going to have enough scooters in the city to have every house be a 50-foot walk to a scooter, but
that gets to my question. I mean, as I understand it, other cities are getting creative. I don't know what St. Louis Park or Brooklyn Center have done, but are trying to get creative. I don't know what that means, but in terms of cost, participation, public funding, that sort of thing, to help make it more viable for private companies like Bird and others to come in and provide that service. And so that's kind of where I was going.
So I can't answer to that. To my knowledge, no city has put in or had any sort of subsidy around at least kind of the RFPs that you've heard about, like the Minneapolis-St. Paul with their bikes and scooters, or any of the scooter suburbs that I had mentioned. Those are all, no. The only transaction is actually assessing a fee on the provider to generally cover for staff time and other resources.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, I know I usually don't speak at this point in the meeting, but I just think it's pointful. Ben gave a presentation on this at the Public Works annual conference, and Ben, I guess kind of to Dan's question, can you just dive in a little more with your experience in St. Louis Park with the scooter rollout? Obviously, a lot less density, a lot less rides. How did it go over there? And you see parallels with it in Richfield and with bringing them here.
Sure. So generally, I think that comparatively, Richfield is certainly positioned to be successful in this, especially because of the density, the access to transit, and the access to our adjacent communities. And so what we had in St. Louis Park was I thought it was generally successful. I think that in the first year that we had in 2019, we certainly had a lot of interest and use. What really stunk later, and during that year, is that's when a lot of the Southwest Light Rail construction started, which took away one of our biggest kind of regional connections for bikes and kind of non-vehicular transit. And so we saw a real dip in use for that. And then put on top of that COVID, just kind of threw it all out. So what I would expect moving forward is that we certainly would have similar success or more. As far as like how big everything was, St. Louis Park had roughly 50 scooters out there, and they were used. I think a lot of it was, it could always be more. It could always be in more places, and so that's something that's different to every community. So we would just work on that, or anything else that we kind of hear as we would ask different departments, ask out in the community what folks are wanting.
Thanks for that clarification, Scott and Ben. That's what I was getting at, is what maybe I jumped to the solution, but what I was trying to say is what do we need to do to get it here? So yeah, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing no further discussion. Thank you, Ben, for that. Now we'll move on to our next item on the agenda, project updates. Looks like 77th Underpass is first.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just hop right in on the update for Underpass. Can you guys hear me, by the way? Okay, awesome.
Yes.
Sorry, my mic's been having issues. Anyways, as far as updates go for the 77th Street Underpass, if you haven't driven by the project in a while, they're moving a lot of dirt over there. Primarily, it's all grading kind of happening in Washington Park and then the future Richfield Parkway, and like a tiny little bit on 77th Street. That's going to be going on more or less on and off for the rest of the winter, especially in Washington Park. It's kind of a start and stop sort of deal. Generally on the west side of Trunk Highway 77, they're doing a lot of other grading and excavation for the new bridge that will allow 77th Street to go under the ramp, which connects southbound Highway 77 to westbound 494. Additionally, another large part of the work that's going on this week and next week revolves around the pouring of footings and creating the abutments for the bridges that will pass over the 77th Street underpass. And additionally, they're also going to be focusing on storm sewer utility work on 77th Street. And then one of the bigger things that's kind of going on, especially over the next few weeks, would be that we're going to be doing sheeting for snow retention for the underpass. So that's going to require some lane closures on southbound Trunk Highway 77 over the next couple weeks. So if you're driving that direction, don't be surprised to see some things closed. But otherwise, that's my update.
Thank you. Quick question: has the unseasonably nice weather accelerated their timeline, or how is that usually taken advantage of?
What I will say is it's definitely not slowing it down. I personally have not been down to the underpass in a week, so I'm not sure exactly what's all changed. I know earlier in the fall there was a bit of a rain delay, and then with the cooler weather that was kind of delaying some stuff. But as far as actual progress goes, it's not like we've had any setbacks on progress. They're still being on top of their schedule. So even with the weather, being nice or not being nice, they're doing a good job of getting things done in a timely manner, which is good.
Great, thank you. Any discussion, questions, or comments on 77th Street? Okay, seeing none, thank you. We'll move on to I-494 Airport to 169 update.
That'll be back to me. So that's one of the main things that I'm taking on as I come into the city, is along with Public Works Director Chris Nasher being the city staff leads for the 494 project. So as far as what's going on right now, we had just finished a kind of round of engagement from MnDOT. So they had a public open house. They also met with the Planning and Community Services Commissions, and then we just had last week or 2 weeks ago, time is flat, whoever said that, where they were at the city council meeting for a public hearing. they will be having additional engagement in the community. A lot of what's left in this project is things around aesthetics, what they call the visual quality manual. And so that will be anything from like handrails and what some of like the sound walls or kind of other kind of large sections of wall kind of like that look like, as well as where could art be in the whole corridor. And so that will be, you may be seeing some of that in the coming months here. That should be lasting through this summer. And then a lot of the rest of the talk right now between staff, the county, and the state is everything about construction mitigation and what are those impacts to the city, and especially when any of the bridges, which is Portland Avenue, 12th Avenue, and Nicollet, since those are all being reconstructed, they have to be closed at some point, and making sure everything's kind of sorted out ahead of time for that. I can certainly answer to any questions or get you further information if you're interested.
Thank you, Ben, for the update. Any discussion, any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, thank you. Let's move on to the next issue or update, the Metro Transit Bus Rapid Transit.
So I'll just touch on quick updates for the two that are in Richfield. So that's the Orange Line and the D Line projects. The Orange Line is the bus rapid transit that will be going along I-35W between downtown Minneapolis and Burnsville. There will be an open house slash kind of grand opening this weekend. And they will actually start doing, they have free Orange Line rides starting on Saturday the 4th. If you end up being there, you'll see me there, and I believe Councilmember Hayford O'Leary will be there as well. So just wanted to give that one a shout out. And as far as I've seen, they're just starting service after that. As far as I've seen, I'm not completely sure on that, but very exciting. And then the other quick one was as far as the D Line Metro Transit or Bus Rapid Transit, which is along Portland Avenue through the city. Excuse me. So they've completed all of their construction work before the winter. I don't believe they're going to be doing much in the winter months here. We're still in talks with them about winter maintenance in that interim time. So that's kind of the plowing around some of the shelters or the bus station areas that they've been working on. And then they'll start back up in the spring. For that one, they're expecting their kind of full operations to start in late 2022. So I would guess, to throw out a month, probably like October or November. Just how things go, just always think later with those kind of big project deadlines. Happy to answer any questions or connect you with information.
Yes, Commissioner Gepner.
So an important aspect of the opening of the Orange Line is the ability of Richfield residents to drive the rental scooters underneath 494 from the Best Buy campus over to Southtown. So on the east side of the roadway for buses is a wide area raised so that it's safe for pedestrians and bicyclists to get back and forth from one side of 494 to the other. Something that I've watched the progress on and look forward to being able to make that so that I don't have to have the perilous route across on Penn or on Nicollet. So I'm encouraging everybody to get on their bikes and ride through. Just, you know, the frustration of some of the particularly bike projects is that they finish them in the fall and then people don't use them because the weather is lousy. So then the naysayers say, hey, nobody's out there, why do we do this? So jump on your bikes this weekend and ride through that tunnel.
Here, here.
Thank you, Commissioner Gepner. Any other comments or questions or discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to our last project update on other commissions, bike advocates, and bicycle-friendly communities.
So I think I've usually given a council update. There's no other liaisons here right now, is there?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Couple things I wanted to mention. One, just to add on to that orange line thing. I will be there. I will be riding from Richfield. If anybody wants to come with me, please do. I'll be riding the 1229 departure from 66th Street and 35W, or just email me if you're interested in joining for that. I did verify the service starts at 5 a.m. on Saturday, so we won't just be waiting for the grand opening to be able to get downtown, or get to Lake Street rather. I believe at the end of that, they're also going to do a full length of the route ride, so people are encouraged to do that to see it all the way to Minneapolis and down to Burnsville and back. Certainly very exciting to happen. 1 p.m. is the grand opening time for that. Also wanted to mention our new bicycle parking ordinance, which is a planning and zoning issue, but it certainly affects our bike friendliness, and I'm really pleased with our new bike parking policy. Our old policy was really limited. It was just a very small ratio of car parking. We didn't address a lot of things like long-term parking in apartment buildings, and the new policy is a huge improvement. Apartment buildings need to provide at least one good sheltered space per unit. There's some additional provisions about supporting e-bikes, supporting spots you don't have to lift a bike in for older folks and for heavier bikes. So big improvement with that. We're also requiring more for smaller businesses where we didn't previously, like coffee shops or corner store type things that under the old rule we're not required to, because they weren't required to provide very much car parking. So I'll just pause quick before I go to the next item. Anything about the bike parking rules? The other thing to mention, I don't know if it's been discussed, is the new snow parking policy. I don't know, Ben or Scott, if that's been discussed, but just if it hasn't, that starting this winter, we're going to a 4-inch trigger instead of a 2-inch. So the amount of time that you are prohibited from parking on the street is less. Of course, if you have a space to put your car, please do take it off the street and make it easier for Public Works to keep the streets clear. But in an effort to reduce really burdensome tickets and lack of options for people who don't have another place to park, we are relaxing that, and Public Works has also installed these snow emergency parking areas on Old Cedar Avenue and 78th Street. So particularly focused on those areas where there's been the most problems and lack of options of people living in apartments who just don't have a place to park off of the street. So I'm really excited about that. It's a really great way to improve equity in a policy that was never intended to be discriminatory, but has had really unequal effects. Anything about that? Oh,
yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
Council member, I can't believe that escaped me. It is very topical for this commission. You gave a really good background on that. Obviously, you're well in the loop on what that is. Yeah. So just to give a little more detail, traditionally our snow emergency would be automatically triggered at 2 inches, which is a pretty light amount of snow. But historically, that's allowed Richfield to clear the streets in 4 hours, and then we're back in business by noon. Whereas other bigger communities to the north can struggle for days to get the streets cleared. So we're going to 4 inches. Our snow plowing regimen in Public Works is not changing one bit. That's been a big part of confusion among the community. That's generated the most calls. A lot of folks thought that meant the plows weren't going to leave the garage until 4 inches had fallen, and that's not the case. We find that even with a 2-inch snow emergency and the threat of a ticket or tow, a lot of folks walk out of their house, see 2 inches of snow, and don't think anything of it, and don't move their cars. And because the only people that can ticket the cars prior to being towed are our public safety officers, sometimes they are on calls and they just simply can't get out and ticket and tow, and therefore there's a snow emergency declared, but there is no enforcement, and it would result in the same thing, a lot of cars in the streets. And we do not believe this will affect the snowplow service in the city. It's one of the things we pride ourselves on. So This is a pilot program, like Councilmember Hayford O'Leary said. We are going to review the data collected and the experience we have this year, this winter, and then choose to extend the program, eliminate it, go back to the old way. So I would encourage you to let us know the experience you have in your neighborhood, what you notice, and yeah, I'll leave it at that. So.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, that was the important clarification that despite it being an issue, I forgot to mention that, yeah, the plows still go out just as much. There's maybe somewhat more cars in some areas that they're working around. So, yeah, spread the word to your neighbors if they also have that misunderstanding. Last thing I wanted to mention were just two development updates that might be of interest. There is a brewery proposed at Richfield Lake next to the amphitheater. Possibly also includes the amphitheater becoming part of the brewery's seating area. So that is sort of working its way through. It has not reached the planning commission yet, but they've had meetings with neighbors that I've been involved with and working through some issues there. The HRA has also already approved a subsidy to help make that happen, and it's conditional on them remaining there for 5 years to receive the full subsidy. Another project that's just been bouncing around for years has another version that will go to the planning commission this December, which is that Emmy site east of Old Country Buffet on 66th Street. They have a new version that's approximately 80 units and 5 stories. So it is quite a bit larger than the previous proposal. I think we're hopeful that something that is welcomed by the neighborhood and finally gets that site. This is the Southview Baptist Church site. Gets something built there that is win-win for everyone. So any other questions about council business?
John, is there proposed retail at that site, or is it all or not?
Yeah, I believe so. I have not seen what they formally submitted. Their earlier drafts have included retail in every form, and it's a small amount. But on the corner of 1st and 66th, there would be like 3,000 square feet, I think, of retail space.
Thank you. Any other discussion or questions, comments for Councilmember Hayford O'Leary? Seeing none, thank you. Our next item on our agenda this evening is the 65th Street reconstruction under work plan review and next steps.
Thank you, Chair Dunster. I'll jump in on this one as well. So I'm not sure how up to speed everybody is, but just to kind of give everyone the spiel, Public Works has been working with our consultants for the past, basically the entire year on design stuff, but we just finished submitting our 90% design plan review comments. And so now we're working toward our 95% design plan. So just kind of fixing those finer details. As far as things that like I'm personally working on, just getting waivers of trespass from all the properties along that corridor. So basically all the paperwork that we need ahead of time saying, hey, we can put, do restoration, enter the property to make things look nice and merge smoothly onto 65th Street, as well as working with neighboring properties to just kind of minimize any impacts that the project will or may have in the future. And overall, our hope is to finish up the design process over like the next month or so, and then have the project out to bid early next year. As far as the schedule for the project itself goes, we're planning on starting early spring of 2022 once we do get that project bid. But contrary to previous estimates, the project's scheduled to last approximately 2 years instead of 1. That's largely due to the complexity of the stormwater mitigation measures that we'll be installing along 65th Street. So the first half of the project, within the first year, is going to go from kind of where the speedway is at Ray Drive and 66th Street, and then work its way east all the way to the railroad tracks that are just east of Glendale. And then in 2023, it'll start from that point and then go and then finish up all the way to Nicollet by the end of the year. And then Joe, if you want to jump in on anything else you'd like to add, feel free.
No, nice job, Olivia. I think that that covered it pretty well. I guess the one thing that I'll add, and I shared this with council maybe 6 weeks ago or so when we kind of made the decision to split the project. We're not 100% sure where that breakpoint is going to be, but we're looking at the railroad as kind of an obvious point to break the project over 2 years. We originally were thinking we could really try to push and get it done within 2 years, but or within 1 year, but it's just not seeming viable at this point. The nice thing about breaking at the railroad there is it gives us some extra opportunity to work with both the railroad and the railway company. It's kind of complex. There's actually one company that owns the land and one company that owns the tracks, and they're different entities. But we have to work with both of them to put some utilities under the train tracks and reconstruct the railway crossing there as part of the project. So breaking the construction there at that point gives us a little bit more flexibility in our timeline if either of those entities kind of hold up the project in any way. Gives us a little more flexibility to not get caught out if that were to happen. So but yeah, overall, thanks Olivia for the update, and we're still on track and looking good to get this project going next year.
Thank you, Joe. Quick question: Who are the two entities? Who owns the land? Who owns the tracks?
It's CP Rail, I believe, owns the land, and Progressive Rail owns the tracks. I think I haven't looked at that specifically in the last few weeks, but I believe that's the two companies. So it is.
Okay, interesting. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions, comments, discussions on this for Joe or Olivia? Okay, seeing none. And before we move on to the next part, just wanted to see, was there any next steps or any action needed from the commission tonight on this or any other issue? And I believe the answer is no. Okay, sounds good. Moving on to our next item, which is thank you to outgoing commissioners.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll take this one. I don't know if this random phone number is Commissioner Severson here. I would want to give him a chance. So I'll start first, but I encourage you to chime in, Ken, if that's you. I'll unmute you just in case you're not able to unmute yourself.
This is Ken Severson, yes. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, Ken, awesome. That is you. So I'll just start. So we have 3 commissioners that would have a term expiring this year. It's Commissioner Bradley and Commissioner Durzak, who are only ending their first term, so they'll be eligible for reapplication. I think both have indicated to me they plan to reapply, so I think we'll be seeing them for another term, which is exciting. Commissioner Severson is finishing I believe it's his 10th year on the Transportation Commission.
Well, it's 3 times 3, right? So finishing my 9th year, yeah.
So per our bylaws, Commissioner Severson is currently terming out and he will not be eligible to reapply. But I know Ken's been part of, the Richfield we know today, he has had a hand in via this commission. So I just want to thank Commissioner Severson for all his work he's done on behalf of the commission and for Richfield. And Ken, if you want to say a few things, go ahead.
Well, I'd just like to say it's been great with all the fantastic people I've had the opportunity to work with over the past 9 years, whether it's the commission members or the Richfield staff. It's been a great 9 years. I really enjoyed it, and best of luck to you as you carry on going forward.
Thank you, Ken, and Mr. Chair. That's all I have on that item.
Great. And I'd just like to say that as well. Thank you very much, Ken, for your service. One question for you, if you don't mind, is do you have any advice or suggestions to new commissioners or just anything like that you'd like to impart on us?
Nothing specific. Just enjoy the time, get out and see what's going on, and don't be afraid to speak up if you got, a concern. I've always found the staff has been very willing to listen to anything we bring forward. I may not always agree, but I've always found the staff is very, very helpful and willing to listen to what's going on. See, I asked for new sidewalks along Lindale Avenue. I got a whole new street, so.
Mr. Chair, may I?
Yes, please.
I just wanted to thank Commissioner Severson as well. Ken, I appreciate all the advice and the thought and input you brought to the commission over the last couple of years that I've been here, and appreciate also the conversations that you and I have had offline about the Lindale project and about other projects for the city, and the insight that you've brought and helped us make some of those projects the best that we can. So appreciate your service over the last decade, and on behalf of Jack Bros as well, who you worked with for many years. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
Okay. All right, and our last item on our agenda prior to adjournment is our upcoming meeting on January 5th, 2022. There's a question mark next to it, so Scott, I think that means it may be canceled.
Well, yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to not do the whole dance that we've been doing for the last year and a half. Just in talking with my colleagues here, Ben and Joe and Olivia, we're not really seeing a substantive agenda for that meeting, just given the holidays and staff time off, and then just kind of where the projects are at. With what Olivia just said, we're not going to have 95% plans with 65th Street, which might warrant a larger meeting or a larger review into 2022. So I think it might be wise to get ahead of that one and just cancel it, especially given its proximity to the new year. Unless you all feel otherwise, I'd be happy to entertain some meeting ideas, but that's kind of our perspective. So,
is there any commissioner who feels strongly in favor of keeping or canceling the meeting?
No, I think it sounds like a good idea because even like they're usually the commissioner interviews are in the month of January, and then the city council comes out with the new commissioners by February. So I think that sounds like a good idea.
Also a good point, Commissioner Bradley. The recruitment, I think, officially starts. It might be going it might be going live tomorrow, and so yeah, that will be the point where folks can apply and then be vetted by the city council and ultimately be appointed to the commission. So in theory, we would have a new commissioner at that February 2nd meeting, and I think that would certainly give us time to prepare a more full agenda, not to waste your time. So.
Okay. Do you want us to pass anything to cancel that meeting, or can we just leave that up to your discretion?
Yeah, I don't think we need a formal motion. I think let's just plan on our next meeting being February 2nd, 2022.
Okay, that works. So we're up to adjournment now. Just Scott, is there anything else since we won't, just want to give you one more chance since we probably won't meet again until February. Anything else? Okay. Okay, well, we are at adjournment. Thank you, everyone. Happy holidays, Happy New Year, and we'll see you.